Доброго дня всім.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now, Kiev Global Shapers Hub is holding event to mark Global Dignity Day that was proposed by World Economic Forum in Davos. Global Shapers is the unique hub that unites all young leaders from different parts of the world, and Kiev Global Shapers Hub hold its own initiatives, organize special events for youth, and introduce new projects. Global Dignity Day was introduced in 2006 and in 2015. In 60 countries in the world, they mark this day, and usually it is an open discussion. And politicians and business people are invited, and academia representatives are invited. Today, Kiev Global Shapers Hub is holding a dialogue with the representative of Ukrainian policy and journalist Mustafa Nayem. What is dignity? And what is the relation of this term to politics? And what about the principles of dignity? So, firstly, we met with the national police today to reinforce their responsibilities, and I will start with global things concerning policy and dignity in politics. I believe that we do not understand what dignity is, why dignity is the central element. Some people believe that dignity is something connected directly only to revolution, to Maidan, but in reality, dignity should become a basis of society. As I see it, in my opinion, confrontation of society and state and we say that there are some guys who make decisions and other people obey. And one of the main reasons why this confrontation happens is that people who are elected and those who are just lay people, they have distorted understanding what it is for. In my opinion,
Гідність в політиці – це в першу чергу
dignity in politics is the understanding that every moment you do everything possible not just to simplify life of police officers, of SBU officers or civil servants, but the most important is to simplify lives of common people. What I mean, I explain it on a very simple example from what we discussed today. We discussed such a moment today that police wants to increase the responsibilities of traffic police officers in order that they could better serve. So they believe that an instrument should be created in order to improve their work. And they want to simplify their life, simplify the procedures, simplify taking decisions, and to avoid responsibility. And if the main was person, the logic would be different. When we are speaking about a person, this means that processes will be more complicated, not simplified. And the lives of politicians should become more difficult, not simpler. Politicians and public servants, they try to simplify their procedures, they try to simplify their working day, not understanding that this distorts the basis because they should take care of people. So in Parliament, it would be simpler if deputy can it would be simpler for deputies to adopt the law without public discussions. So, for example, a person knows the field, then he introduced the law to the parliament, then there's public discussions, activists start to work, and lawyers are involved, and others, and then this process becomes long and lasts for several months, and deputies say, I know how to do it, and specialists know how to do it. Let's introduce it just to the parliament as it is done now. But we are speaking that these public debates are important. But politicians, they want to just adopt the laws. How many people in the whole of the Supreme Council understand the issues, specific issues? So some people just want to take this decision with a small number of people. And in this way, they create a precedent, and then this way, the procedure is created that simplifies the life of this politician. But further, the same will be done to the people's rights laws and about judiciary, law enforcement, and simplifying the life of politicians. We create problems for people. And if the society do not have opportunity to influence this, or the desire to do this, because we have many opportunities actually. So the system improves itself, and we see that we are hostages of the power we elected. In order that society could influence, there should be dignity in society. People should oppose. They should protest against it. And the society should influence through expert communities, activists, civil society. They should influence processes in such a way that it should be for people, not just for specialists or for politicians. Speaking about politicians, one of the main reasons why politicians do not like the topic of dignity is because they do not have the sense that their work is really needed. Usually the dialogue goes like this. You are just rubbish, and we are here, so we are so good, and everything you do is wrong, and we know clearly that everything you do is bad. And normal politicians start to believe that his actions are not needed. No one wants to communicate, no one explains what to do. And no matter what he does, people will believe that it is wrong because he is the representative of power. Also, I would like to tell you about salary of deputies. It was raised twice, and in my opinion, this is not correct to increase the salary like this. But why it happened, in my opinion, it was done because this salary that was before, this was 5,000 hryvnias, is not enough. And people didn't have the feeling of dignity, and politicians didn't believe that someone communicates with them. So the system is like in Yanukovych's time, they introduced the law, changes in the law, and the salary was increased. I didn't know even that there was a norm introduced in the law when I voted for the law. It's not even funny because the deputies, they cannot read everything. They cannot know what all the amendments introduced into the law. If you look at the state budget or the codes that are brought for discussion, these are 300 or 400 pages, and it's very difficult even for specialists to deal with it. They just take the sector they understand, they look it through and criticize some part. And without the dialogue, without influence of society and cooperation and pressure, there won't be dignity in politics and in society. Going back to the main basis of dignity is not just a feeling, It is not just a word. It's not about salaries. Dignity is an instrument. It is the influence of power on people and influence of people on power through mechanisms, legal mechanisms. And if they do not work, so these are rallies and, as we say, public pressure. My feeling what dignity in politics is and what I believe is the most vulnerable part of politics. In any case, introducing the rules, you take responsibility. No matter what, any rules in society are painful. Not all the rules, especially concerning law enforcement, are understandable at once. Not all the rules are present throughout the spectra. Not all the rules regulate all relationships. Not all the rules can be used in the right way, but taking responsibility, you should first do everything possible in order that this rule that you invented didn't abuse people who adhere to the law and do not provide power with such instruments, those means that in case of change of power would prevent people to defend themselves from the state. So we will have open discussion when each will have opportunity to ask questions. So I have several questions. You spoke about new traffic police. You took part in the training, the vetting. What about the ideas of dignity in this area? Or was it just training, theoretical training, without any moral things? Concerning police officers. So, patrol officers, the main idea why we have misunderstanding between police officers and society is that here in Kiev we see road police that are near Ukrainian house. They are you can make selfie with them and they adhere to the law, but only 20% of this police officers are like this in this country. So when we develop rules for the police officers, we provide instruments to those beautiful police officers, and we provide also the same instruments those 80% who work in other territories of the country, and this is not only about small or big cities. So I stood a road police. They underwent some training concerning values. What I mean. So no one said that they should adhere and be and lead dignified life. But one of the main idea in this training, when you use legal procedures provided by legislation, they should do it in a dignifying way. So when how the police officers worked before, they had legislation, the instruments provided by it, and he can, by these instruments, to force the citizen to adhere to the law. And in mentality of people, that these are two sides of barricades. There is a person, there is a police officer, and in case something happens, so the police officer stands at the other side, believing that the person who is at the site of crime or offense, so that they are enemies, that they enforce, and we taught differently. One of the main mottos of the police was "my police," and "my" was consciously added. We discussed it for a long time, and the simple thing is the logic of police is that imagine that we live like a single community. Imagine that we decided that we live in this house and we eat here, we spend time here, and in the morning we wake up and see that someone drew something on the wall, and we get there and ask who drew this, and they say, I believe that this is Vasya who did it, and we start to ask Vasya to remove this drawing, but at one moment we say, let's find 3 or 5 people among us to whom we say that you will do this job, you will follow, you do not create value, we will respect you and you will act like law enforcers, so we will abide to you, but if we won't trust you, so the situation won't be like this. So we are not people from Mars, or if people introduced by Avakov or me or someone else. So these are people with whom we decided that we all be adhering to the rules, and even if difficult situations appear, so they should enforce, because we need the rules in our society. So we said to police officers that you are my police, not the police of the ministry, but people police for the people. Many people whom we selected, about 70% were people from the street. So they were just lay people, common Ukrainians, and they didn't have this opposition in them, between them and other people. So they respected other people, even those who made some offenses, and now we see that they are sometimes humiliated, they are not rigid enough, and this is the other side of the medal. But we taught them, and if you see when the police is called, so people started to call police more. And previously we called police when someone was raped, killed or beaten. Even when someone was beaten, they didn't call the police. And now they call police when a cat is on the tree and people want to take it down. And when you ask about the actions of police, people say, oh, nothing happens. People do not do anything, but they continue to address. And people usually address those whom they trust. If you do not trust, you do not address. So people feel that this is their police. So this is police who defend people. And also police officers do not have proper responsibilities, and the system should be improved, and we hope that in the parliament the situation will be resolved.
Let's depart a little bit from the police project, and I would like to ask you about the dignity which has been already created in Ukraine. You have been the participant of the revolution of dignity in Ukraine. The society is characterized by dignity. Social institutions, they are built according to dignity, based on dignity. They are dignity based. So when a person has already lost dignity, can such a person become free again? It seems to me we have somewhat Slavic approach, emotional approach. Dignity is not about how we feel ourselves. This is the consequence of this feeling, of the institutions and tools which we have. As for me, dignity is tools. If we have working institutions in reality, and the opportunity to stand for own rights, and the person can use these tools for human rights, then even Mafka can be turned into a democrat. The cause is very simple. This is just mechanic way. Dignity is built in mechanic way. Very mechanical when a person face authorities and has no tools to protect, then generation after generation a person decides that he or she is just an animal and has no right to take part in decision making, and emotional feeling is a consequence. This is the loss of dignity. So the same mechanical way will bring to restoration of dignity. When a person is given a tool, the person can unlock its potential, and very the tool which is really working. If we look into the east of the country and the level of activeness of journalists and entrepreneurship in the east, people, there were no public activities, no civil society activities in the east of Ukraine. They were very discreet, fragmented NGOs available in the East previously, not because people were of low quality, but because after the collapse of Soviet Union, the western and central parts of our country, they didn't have large factories, and there was no need to be subjected to some authorities. And in the east there were large companies, large plants and factories, oligarchs, top managers of those enterprises. They were such fathers of those people. So people either in the West, they either fled as expatriates to work in Europe, and then mass media and some movements appeared in the country, while in the east of the country the situation was calm. Most of population they worked in mines. This is the mines culture and factories culture, and what we have now in the east. The one who can go there, who can visit the eastern parts of the country, this is a kind of explosion of initiatives, because the vertical, social vertical has disappeared. The same oligarchs available, youth has no perspective to work in mines. 1.7 million of IDP, they also live in that region, so I'm sure in a few years the region will change dramatically. What happened? Those people, they received the tools to build careers, to build themselves, to build their identities. So earlier or later, these people will understand that they can create parties, then can create civil society movements and free mass media sources. Open spaces and co-working are multiple there, where people work just dozens kilometers at 10 kilometers distance from the front line. Just think why they are doing that. It is hard to understand why do people do that. So they are not to be forced to become more dignified, to become more free. They see that they have possibility to protect themselves, to be more free. So feeling of dignity is just a consequence of mechanical, procedural aspects available in the society. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? So we will continue our discussion. If you have questions, you can ask them. Well, I have question. In your opinion, is it possible that the person forget or forget its principles of dignity for some reason? As for me, it seems to me that in a legal and legislative plane, when the law violates civil rights, this means not to limit civil rights scope, but to change the law. If some provision of the law, which is even a long-term one, it has been in effect for a long time, but it violates civil rights, so it could be not respected then. This is my personal opinion. The same concerns ideas, projects, initiatives. If you have a general goal which can cause violation of person's dignity, then this would mean that the project is not completely correct. So sometimes we sacrifice our time, our health, but we should not sacrifice our dignity, because this cause deeper ruining, deeper destroying person. It's his or her identity. I can also explain in the following terms: when we should have some very big job done, we can not sleep, not eat, but we can't sacrifice our dignity to make some job, to have some job done. So the consequences of deviating from dignity will be stronger than the consequences of sacrificing your time. In Ukraine, what is the indicator of modern politician? I don't know whether there is a dignity, an indicator of fair politician. In our country, the main cause is that we try to look in to some other countries, to Europe. For example, European parliamentarians, by official delegations, they go to Crimea. When we talk about Europe, what country do we mean? Or Brexit or Breivik, to where we would with what we try to follow. As for me, the main reason of the systemic violations or systemic deep violations of dignity in Ukraine, this is just because we try to follow someone, to follow Europe or the West or Russia or some other country. understanding what is happening in Europe, we just should follow those documents, for example, like human rights conventions. We should follow its provisions, but not Europe in general. We should follow those documents which resulted in instilling good qualities such as dignity among Europeans. If you look how media is built in Italy, where everything is concentrated in the hands of oligarchs, I don't think we would like to do that. So we should look into deep we should look in deep into primary documents underlying the processes. And in Ukraine, what is the factor of underlying actions of and relationships in politics? Unfortunately, this is profit. Let's divide by benefits. Benefits can be not only tangible. For healthy politician, I am not talking about businessmen, actors, writers. Respect to people, not support to people. Respect to people, this is the main thing. Respect can be lost even if you do correct things. You can lose respect to people if you can't communicate them the reasons of your actions. So if you can't explain your actions to community, this means that you don't respect your people to the high extent. So support, this is one thing, and populist, this is the other pole. Also benefits are corruption and influence. This is the third factor. The extreme pole of it is usurpation. So benefits can be money, support to people, or power, or in other words, influence. Unfortunately, dignity is not now the main factor for Ukrainian politicians, as well as respect to people. I have a question as concerns your journalistic activities. Where is the barrier which you will not break, or you don't have any barriers if you need some source of information? Here I think we touch very sensitive aspects. This depends on the goal. If we need to communicate some information to society, no barriers can be set, but what we mean under the information which is important for the society. For example, I think private life should not be made public. This is not journalism, this is some other thing. I think that private life which results in corrupt acts, this is other thing. In all other aspects, private life should not made public. Everything which does not violate personal dignity, this is private life, relations, medical and health information about a person. That's all. We don't touch state secrets. There are no methods which journalists which can stop a journalist from getting information. A very simple story. A journalist works for society. This means journalist is always against the state, and the state always tries to put barriers for which you should violate the law. For example, to steal a document from the minister's office. This is the criminal act. But on the side of society, this is the right thing. So professional deformations, distortions can take place if you know for sure that this paper on minister's test or on minister's table is just the document the society needs to know. There is such a test. When you see information on the minister's table, you see this information about some secret operation. What would you do then? This test is very important for journalists. You understand that you should abide to the law. You understand that this is the state secret, and whether to make it public, this is your inequalities, your personal qualities, and you know that to take this document, this is illegal, and bringing out this document from the office, you made public this secret information, and people can die because of that. Well, this is the moral choice. I don't know what would I do if I am subject to such a test. If you have the opportunity to carry out some documents, you should do that by intervening, by breaking privacy and or becoming subject even to criminal investigation. This is the work for journalists, and in this sense journalists' actions could be justified. This means the same that as a doctor they can't choose who to take care of. They provide medical care, medical aid to separatists and to Ukrainian soldiers. This is the obligation of a doctor, even if the doctors provide assistance to soldiers of the other side from Russian area. What about doctors? If Russian doctor is requested to go to Crimea, whether to go there, in terms of Ukraine, he can't go there, but as a doctor, he or she must go because people needs medical assistance. Unfortunately, there are such professions, for example, medical profession and journalism. Journalists sometimes break laws. This is an aspect of their profession, but this is important to try not to break private data, not to intervene private lives. And as concerns dignity in working spheres, whether there is dignity in relations between deputies, people's deputies and their assistants, whether there is dignity between people's deputies and their assistants, whether there is respect in place in their relations, or or this is just such working sphere where respect is lacking? I don't know. This is a surprising question. This is just our work. Everyone works. Assistant works. People's deputy works. Every work is subject to some standards and rules of the game and efficiency indicators. Some specific cases, I had several assistants. Some of them decided not to continue our working relations, but I have one assistant with whom we have been working for 2 years. Also, when we quarreled, this does not mean that we broke our relations. He knows that as concerns timelines or my personal issues, this is his job to provide assistance to me. Of course, we can have private conversations together. He is now my partner in an NGO because he really is keen in these practical and theoretical questions. This is just work. Assistant, this is not a slave. He is not a slave. This is not slavery. When we don't have slavery. We should understand each other. As assistant, understand that people's deputy has more duties, but at the same time, people's deputy should understand that an assistant is just an employee. If they don't agree, then they just break their relation. Thank you for your answer. Do we have any questions among the audience?
Good afternoon, Christina. Mustafa, tell us, please, should politician be dignified? Should he be honest? And whether it is really possible? What does it mean to be honest? Can you explain this to me? To be honest. And I would like to ask you, what is your deliberations of this? And do you have your personal opinion what honesty means? To be honest before people. But what does it mean to be honest before people? I do not manipulate. I just want to get the idea. Because we identify the term and then we build everything around this term. But maybe it would be correct if we look at the deputy not like some biblical person, but the instrument of the society, and he has a goal. The deputy should be honest in relation to goal he declared and the actions he make, and maybe this honesty, for example, if some deputy stole 1 billion hryvnias, but he has a mandate, and whether I should negotiate with him to adopt draft law. For example, draft law on children's rights. Should we do this? Is it really honest? I believe that this is not completely honest. And now I look at from different perspective. So if I don't do this, I can make this. So I would say that I honestly didn't broaden the rights of children. The law was not adopted, but I remained fair and honest. And whether I'm honest and fair to the goal when I became the deputy. So I pledged that I will do everything for my voters. So speaking simpler, when you were a child, you had some instruments in your life how to influence your parents. For example, you could shout, ask. When you become adult, you get more instruments. You can flee, you can go somewhere, you can manipulate parents. When you're a student, the relationship is different, and then you go to work and the relationship differs. So you have more sophisticated instruments, so you should have more compromise and you have big choice. When you were small, you had really fair and honest instruments. So you could ask your parents for food, but then you understand that, for example, when you are adult, it's difficult to ask parents. So people start to manipulate that I should show respect. This is honest. But if we look at from a child's prospect, so maybe a child believes that they can go to their parents once a week because they are not interested in speaking to them. Or I won't spend much time with you as I did before. And also in society among politicians, when you go up the social ladder, the more instruments you have. And if at the same time your goal does not grow, you will make faults. If you have big compromises, big instruments, and a small goal, there's mistakes. So when we are speaking about big goal, the matter of honesty, fairness, it should correlate with your goal you declare. So, and the main thing here is motivation and goal, not by any means. But even then, you have this gap. So from one side, you can go and kill offender, and from other side, you can send him to prison, or you can negotiate, or you can influence him somehow. So the only goal is to stop violation. And in this sense, the matter of honesty, fairness is subjective. And I believe that you should be honest. You should be open. Every time you should be open, and you should carry out your activities in order to achieve goals. And some politicians, of course, make mistakes, and I make mistakes. And we should speak about it. And whether the mistake is dishonest, but it is dishonest not to correct the mistake. So whether it is honest or dishonest to negotiate with the system to get results, we have no other system, and I was delegated to the system. So if I negotiate only with fair deputies, many decisions won't be taken by the parliament. It won't happen. Never. It will never happen. Who are you? So what are you? I'm a specialist in culture. You know that the majority of cultural projects funded by people who got this money illegally. And do you believe that it is fair and honest to work in this area? I don't know whether it is correct. I don't know. Maybe you do it for your own pleasure if you want to develop something. The story will be different if you want to reach some goal. The matter is different. So this reality we have now, it's not in books. It's not in some utopia. We have it here, now, today, and what you do now and what you will leave behind. So you can choose goal to fight all this. That then you are on the other side. You say, I am a saint and I fight it. And I have no other goals than to fight it. Even if I die, I will fight with it until the end and I won't compromise. So this is a normal story, but you should say this. There are some lawyers for this, some advocates. But even lawyers, it's difficult for them to resolve these issues. They are those who fight corruption and other people. But this is a different story, and you should conceptually establish this for yourself. So a lot of good things are done with the use of illegal money. For example, many businessmen who provide money for the war, they made this money unfairly. They committed some violations. Or, for example, medical care. Some funds, for example, for cancer patients, for children. So they provide money that may be not legal, but these people who help, but people who rule these funds, who use this money for a good purpose, so maybe they are fair. And the politician should view himself in the prospects of his goals, because otherwise this is other matters. Do you have other questions? Please ask. Thank you. And for me, this previous discussion was very interesting for me. For me, this Global Dignity Day is something, is that if I have principles, this is the basis. If I have the principle that I do not work with killers, with people who steal, this is my basic dignity, and I won't compromise even for the sake of goal. So this is a very important issue. You say that the goal is what is basic, not the principles of dignity. Okay, I will explain it to you in other way. So why this issue arises, why this discussion happen, what is politics and how it appears in society. So we model the situation. We live here, we live, and a problem appeared. We have some problems in relationship, in material things, and someone comes out and says, let's do it differently, let's live differently. And if he convinces us that he really knows how, if he convinces us that he is a leader and he can negotiate things with everyone, if he convinces us that he will contribute and to us, he goes to politics and we elect him and he realizes himself in policy. And the same in business, in other spheres of leadership. What happens next? When you become a leader of some community, you have your own principles, and also you have rules that are dictated to you by this community. And in this community there can be Muslims, Jews, Orthodox Christians, and Muslims never eat pork. Jews have their traditions. And politician, he can have his own principles. For example, that he has some moral and religious beliefs as well. But in society there are different people who have different principles. And each person, he sees that if the politician violates some principles that he believes in, he feels that this is not honest. If we are speaking about global logic, this is not correct. But who should speak with killers? Only law enforcers or judges and convoy officers and psychologists, for example. He comes to the killer and asks him whether he violates some principles not to speak with killers, but he has responsibilities, and the same with politicians. They have environment, we bring them in. This is a toxic environment, unfair environment, this is dirty environment, and he cannot remain the same because otherwise he won't be active. But, for example, we can bring him there in order that he would do this environment more clean, and we understand that he will cooperate with those who are there. So there is no country in the world where politics would be clean and fair. This country does not exist. Please show just one country where you believe the politics is completely clean. Doesn't mean that all politicians that are there, renowned politicians who were real leaders, that they were dirty or dishonest. Of course not. But about principles and rules, I believe that there are principles and there are red lines. For example, not to work with the killers. This is a good principle. Not to kill is a red line. But not to kill the killer, I can violate this because I know that in our parliament there are 100% there are people, some people who were involved in killings. It is not confirmed, but they are the part of some factions. And can the law be adopted by such person? Can it be the violation of my principles? And whether it is the violation of my red line? No. So dignity is based on red lines and principles. So the violations of red lines and principles should be motivated why we do this. When we fight, when we kill, we do it with motivation. In the Bible it is said, do not kill. But when we defend, we kill. Does it mean that we violate some of our internal principles? No, because we have motivation why we do this, and motivation, the goal, allows us to violate these principles. And if this person kills a hostage or a captive, in fact, it looks like the same thing, but this is a crime because this is red lines, and the person do not pose a threat. And if this person is killed, so this is red line, and we should adhere to our moral and ethic principles, and we should, these red lines, we should distinguish and understand them. Whether I work with those people who steal or kill, I will work with them, but I won't help them and I won't do these offenses. So we should clearly understand what compromises we can make with the view of our goal, and what compromises cannot be done even for our goal. So going back to what you said, yes, you are right. We shouldn't violate our principles, but when you have a large, big goal, you should clearly understand where is your principle and where is these red lines that you won't violate even for the sake of this goal. So there is one more question. I want to answer this question. Good afternoon, Victoria. About the increase of the rights of the policemen, some lawyers say that it can lead to the fact that they will abuse their powers. How can you comment this? Do we have a broadcast? It is a live broadcast, yes. It can lead to what? To abuse of powers. I won't say this loud words as gendarmerie, this police state, and I don't want to mention all this and the WACF. I don't want to mention it because this distorts the system. Going back to what I said before, one of the main reasons why these situations appeared is that we considered minor cases, separate cases. We bring into the overall level and create a general rule that will work in real cases but can lead to overall situation. So Some people want to introduce the rule of 24-hour detention if a person violated laws, and that can result to administrative arrest, no matter what you did. I don't mean criminal actions. So you can be detained for 3 hours, and now they say that if you, for example, committed some administrative violations, you can be detained for 24 hours. And they say that we have household violence, and for example, a person was detained while being under the influence of alcohol, and this person is brought to police, and then this person goes back home and beats his wife because he is still drunk, and police says, let's detain them for 24 hours, and then the person returns home when he is sober. But it means that, for example, the documents can be taken from you, and they have 24 hours, and you are in police facilities, and your rights can be violated in such case. So these norms that are proposed, 3 or 4 points about administrative arrest for 24 hours. Then second, the reasons for stopping the car. They introduce such a notion that if police officer has grounded information, confirmed suspicion, or even just suspicion that you drive under the influence of alcohol, they can stop you and verify whether you are really drunk. What is grounded suspicion or ungrounded suspicion, it's difficult to say whether it can be adopted. And also the norm concerning the use of some special means. I believe that many of what is being introduced is good, but this arrest for 24 hours won't go through the parliament. It would be really difficult to adopt this. And also about 2 witnesses, we spoke about it, that 2 witnesses should be present if you are stopped and verified for the alcohol abuse. So they want to introduce the norm that the 2 witnesses are not needed. So if they add some video footage made by police, then it should be seen that this person is drunk. So these 2 witnesses won't be needed. Also the documents should be given to the police officer, not just shown. Yes, there is a threat that someone will tow these documents or won't hand this document for me. Or, for example, some people do not want to go out of the car when police asks, and that you should obey, for example, any orders of the police, and then you can appeal against his actions. Maybe this is too much. This is what I want to say. I don't want to speak about it because there are norms that are still coordinated, and I don't want to confuse society on these issues and to introduce even more contradictions, because there is non-systemic communication from the bodies of power. So this is the end of our press briefing. Thank you very much for your answers, and goodbye.